Hi guys, so this is Alexander Reed for Activity 2 in Module 3. Just so you guys remember, I'm working at the Vietnamese Australian International School here in Saigon. Before we continue, in the description below, I have put the summaries of the transcripts of the interviews, which I did with 3 teachers who work at my institution, 3 of my colleagues. And I've also attached the lesson plan that we'll be analyzing with the ISET standards. And just so I don't have to repeat anything, if you guys want to pause the video here and open those up for viewing so you guys can follow along with what I'm talking about. It'll probably save a lot of time. So unfortunately, as I said, I was not able to interview people from different institutions, but I was able to interview people who have different experiences in terms of grades and subjects. So we had Mache, who was teaching global perspectives, like a humanities Cambridge program. For grades 8 and 9, I think. Aaron, who was doing IGCSE English, and Mitch, who is doing primarily business studies and global perspectives as well, but with the upper grades. So you can see the questions that I decided to use after our debate in the discussion forum. And answers were similar in some cases because we all teach at the same institution. So, for example, what kind of technology is available to us, etc. However, there are 3 points that I thought were interesting that I might bring up. Number 1 was that the international school that I work for is well funded and children are rather wealthy. But one thing that's really important is no matter what kind of wonderful technology you'd like to use in the classroom, if the power isn't on or if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, you could have all the plans in the world, but if that main thing, like that infrastructure that the school cannot control, which is like on a national level, is affected, then you're screwed. And so everybody said, yeah, we have all these great tools, but you know that the internet doesn't work half the time. So I thought that was kind of funny and also like something beyond our control. The second one is that there was an overwhelmingly positive response to students engaging with new technology. Aaron did say that while he was working at university and he had some older students that they were perhaps a bit hesitant, but in general, and in my experience myself, is that students really enjoy the challenge of engaging with and navigating new forms of technology, software, devices, platforms, and that overall this is a really, this increases engagement and that students are big fans of that. And the last one, and a question that I thought was important that we're not considering, and that I feel like with all these buzzwords getting thrown around, like 21st century skills and integrated technology, is just that the most important thing, and this was for question number 6, which was what particular devices, tools, or programs do you think are most important for students to be able to use by graduation, is that sure, they might know how to use all these little apps and play all these games, but when they finish school and they go to university or they enter the workforce, what is really going to be of concrete and practical use to them when looking for a job or when, in their professional lives? And a lot of times, the things that we're talking about are not. So, for example, using Microsoft Suite, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, basic design tools like how to make a poster or an infographic, how to research things on Google using key terms effectively and deciding on which links are worth clicking on, what sources are credible, etc. Those are skills that are often overlooked, and all the teachers that I interviewed agree with that. So yeah, you can see the rest of their answers and of course the questions in the document, which I hope you've taken a look at. So moving on, we have the lesson plan here. This was Mache's Global Perspectives lesson for a grade 8 class. So this is the academic program. So they would have better English than some, but still not top-notch. And the lesson focuses on conflict in the Cameroon. So in the first part here in the warmer, he had students circle Cameroon on the map in their electronic notebooks and find as much information as possible at Cameroon from the internet in 5 minutes. Now, if we're looking at the ISTE standards for educators here, I think that that ties in nicely with the collaborator one because they're supposed to be doing it in groups. And they're, I have the definition here: to improve, practice, discover, and share resources and solve problems. So, I'm sure that these students would not know where Cameroon is on the map. It's not a country they would have often heard about. So, using technology to explore and to collaborate falls in nicely with those standards. Now, in terms of its effectiveness, I don't know if using Google Earth, or whether they would have any real context or understanding of where Cameroon actually is, other than just saying it's there on the map. But that remains to be seen. Also, lots of strategies for differentiation are possible there. So then they watched a video about conflict in the Cameroon, and again, this is something that ties in with the analyst part. So they were using some of the data that they learned about in that video. Also ties in with the learner one. For just using technology to generally improve their knowledge, and I find that that would be much more engaging, visually stimulating. Also adapts to different styles of learners who are more visual, who are more audio, instead of just the classic let's read an article in a textbook about Cameroon type thing. And then at the end, the other way he integrated technology was having students create a mind map in OneNote using drawing tools and uploading images from the internet, and then projecting it and doing brief presentations on it. And I thought that worked really well with the IST standard for designer. So giving them practical experience with working with different apps, programs, the ability to take images and display them nicely, to project them up on the screen. So I think that in this lesson, there's lots of ways that these standards have been shown. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go into a lot more detail on that, but I can definitely see that the technology would have been effective. It would have been collaborative. It would have involved space for designing, for analyzing, and of course for learning. Lastly, the last thing that we had to speak about was what 5 things we would use to guide our lessons when creating them based on these IST standards. So after reading things in the discussion forum and also coming up, just thinking about it myself, I think that the 5 things for me would be: number 1, is technology going to positively impact this lesson, and how? That's not to say that we only need to use technology when it's absolutely necessary, but sometimes incorporating it just for ticking a box is not valid, and it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't justify the use of it. So I think we're too often drawn to just putting it in there because it's like a buzzword. Number 2, what is the most effective form of technology to help us reach a given objective? So again, do we really need to make some complicated app or design project when really a quick Google search or a short video would be equally as effective? So we don't want to drown ourselves or bog ourselves down or just do it for its own sake. Number 3, is this technology available, and are the students going to be able to grasp it and use it effectively? So if it's not available, well, then you can't use it. Number 2, if it's too difficult for the students, you're just going to end up bogging yourself down. Number 4, how will we assess whether the technology has been effective in terms of helping us reach our learning objectives? So how are we going to decide if that was actually useful at the end in facilitating the objective of the lesson? And I think that you could write a book on that, so we won't get into that here, but I think it's still important to consider. And lastly, afterwards, and I think it would be good to have one of these things to focus on reflection at the end, was what could have been changed, added, or taken away that would have made the use of that technology more effective. So, just reflecting on the use of the technology afterwards would also help you to improve that lesson and make it more effective for the next time. I'm going to include the list of credits here. I hope that this was helpful, or that it generated some ideas with you guys. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and any questions, just post them in the discussion forum. All right, thanks a lot. See you later.